Testing, testing. 1, 2, 3. Testing, testing. 1, 2, 3.
Alright.
Yep. We are golden. Golden, golden, golden. Splendid. Wonderful. Let us start by scrolling. Yeah. There are no spoilers for any further books because I haven't written any further books. Although I do have an idea for another story after this one. I just don't know if I want to write it yet or not. But I just need some time to think about it. But yeah. I don't know if this will be the finale. It doesn't have to be. Because, well, story is still going. We're on chapter 12 right now because we finished chapter 11. And yeah, we'll try to go for 10 chapters. We'll see how far that goes. And if we go for longer, we go for longer. And yeah. Guinea pigs are also being quite civil. I don't normally do this so late. It typically ends up being a bad idea. But, okay. We're almost there. We're almost there. Chapter 11. Slowing down. Chapter 12. Here we are. If you haven't read the first part, you probably should, because there are spoilers. But yeah, things are about to get kicked off, and I definitely think about this a little bit more interestingly. I explore some ideas. Let's get right into it. That was a good snap. Chapter 12. Impulse slowly opened his eyes drowsily, blinking as he heard a faint buzzing sound. He wasn't sure if it was real or if he was imagining it as he sat up with a groan. He felt mildly sore as he went to touch his head, feeling something smooth where he touched. It took him a few agonizing seconds to realize what it was. It felt a little warm to the touch, like it had been on for a while as he blinked. He looked around his surroundings. A small cell made out of smooth white material. Quartz? Concrete? He wasn't sure. His impulse rubbed the sleepers from his eyes, seeing the iron door across the room to the far left. The room was nicely lit, with a redstone lamp, although the floor was smooth stone. He groaned as he got to his feet. A lot of groaning in this paragraph. Stretching to help the blood flow. Impulse saw no windows in the room either. So he... Yes?
Can you autograph Dad's card, please?
Yes. There we go.
Doing it a little before Dad gets home.
See. Okay, thank you. Impulse saw no windows in the room either, so he couldn't guess where they were. He didn't remember much of the trip either. Where was he? Was he even still near the others? Or had he been taken to another world entirely? Impulse turned to the door when he heard the sound of footsteps. The room itself was pretty much empty, leaving him not much to do as he stumbled to the door. Hello? Good, you're awake, a soldier grunted, appearing a moment later. His uniform looked slightly different than he'd last seen them, with a mix of purple and crimson stripes going down the back fabric of the man's chest. Where am I? Impulse demanded, as the guard unlocked the cell door, opening it. That's none of your concern now. Let's go. The soldier replied, gesturing to where he'd come. You're not going to tie me up or anything? So I can't escape? Impulse asked, quizzically, debating whether or not he should try to make a run for it when the headband clinging to his head came to life as he gasped in pain. The soldier laughed. You're not going anywhere. Not when that thing's live. Any thought of an escape, and you'll regret it. Impulse swallowed, nodding his head. Where are we going? You'll see. the guard said with a shrug. Impulse cautiously stepped out into the cell. Out of the cell, actually, unsure if this was really happening. How did the headband work? Was it anything to do with what Gerald had mentioned? Was it the new setting? The guard didn't say anything as Impulse led the way down the hallway. You're not going to kill me, are you? Impulse asked nervously. Why would we take you all the way out here just to kill you, YouTuber? That seems pointless. The guard replied. The guard replied, sounding mildly annoyed by the hermit's comment. If you wanted you dead, young Royster would have easily done it before you stepped into your room. How did you know what happened? Impulse demanded. He won't stop boasting about it, the guard groaned, shaking his head. Impulse managed to smile. He seems to have a high ego. The hermit groaned a moment later, clutching the headband again, and the man smirked. The guard didn't respond until they neared the end of the hall. I wish you luck, and if I were honest with you, I'd tell the truth. What will you do if I don't? Impulse pressed. The guard chuckled. It won't be me who's doing it, YouTuber. If you know what's best for you, then do what you're told. I'm not helping you, or your leader, Impulse insisted, firmly, as the door in front of the room opened. On his own. The hermit surmised there were probably a switch or button somewhere in the room. I don't think you have much of a choice, a familiar voice replied. The shiver ran down the hermit's spine. Julius? Impulse asked, hesitant to walk into the room. Julius stood by another man who was about half a foot taller than him. The man wore a very fashionable uniform, a black leather jacket with blue, green, and purple stripes circling around the middle of the jacket. Even the black pants had some vertical colored stripes down the leg. He's impressed by your outfit, sir, Impulse mused with a chuckle. Impulse snapped his eyes at the young man. Can you read my thoughts? It was only then that he noticed the headbands dropped on Julius's forehead. It glowed a forest green color, faintly. The guard pushed him into the room as Impulse stumbled forward. The door closed behind him. I can, and it's quite entertaining, Julius mused with a giggle. I heard you waking up. Impulse swallowed. How far can you hear someone's thoughts with that? I can only hear you when I wear this, Julius pointed at the headband. It's like a hands-free controller. With a single thought, I could do anything to you. Make you feel like you're falling, surrounded by spiders, or feeling immeasurable pain. Impulse's eyes grew wide, as understanding came to him. The setting that Tango had found. The reason it hadn't worked was because it hadn't been connected to the controller they were using. It had connected to someone else. Julius smiled, having read the hermit's realization. Oh, of course, it's Campbell. Theodore Campbell. He is the head of our ragtag group of a mess that you ruined. Julius sneered. How did I ruin it? Impulse crossed his arms. You helped capture Mr. A, RJ, and Gerald, the three heads of our party. You left us on our own to figure out where to go. But now we have a new opportunity, a shining beacon of hope, and there's nothing you can do to stop us. Julius boasted triumphantly. Wow, God wasn't wrong. He does love to boast. Impulse winced when he heard another thought in his mind, reminding him Julius could still hear his thoughts. Thank you, Julius, for the introduction, Campbell said calmly, walking over to the table in the center of the room. Can you come over here and have a look at all of these things my men found in your possession? Impulse stepped forward, half expecting a trap to fall on him, or someone to lunge out of nowhere to attack him. Laying on the table, he could see various different gadgets. I don't know why Grammarly didn't try to fix that one. Oh well. The communicator, the visibility detector, a camera, and a chip he had stored in a pocket. He tried to avoid looking at the chip, not wanting to think about it. Looking over at Julius, who was watching intently. What do you want me to do? Impulse asked cautiously. I just want to talk, just to see what you know. Campbell said calmly. It shouldn't be too hard as a first impression, unless, of course, you refuse to cooperate. I'm not telling you anything, Impulse said defiantly, ignoring the shock of pain that shot through his body, fighting back a reaction. Why don't you tell me about this? Campbell pointed over to the communicator. What about it makes different from ours? And how did you make it so well? It's just a way to communicate with others. Impulse frowned, picking it up. He's thinking about trying the chip. Excuse you. Or at least trying not to think about it. This young man blurted. Dang it, Julius! Impulse snapped, glaring at the man. The soldier smiled at it with a shrug. What? You're a terrible liar. I can see it in plain sight, Julius mused. Does he know if it'll work? Campbell pressed, walking over to pick up the chip. He's not sure with the setting we're on. It's untested. Julius said smugly. What do you know about this set? Campbell asked smoothly, holding up the small object in his hand. I built it to combat against the headband after I was forced to be tormented by it 3 times. Impulse lifted his chin, yelping in surprise as he felt something stinging him before realizing it was Julius. He wasn't the one who made the chip. Julius squinted for a moment before he frowned. Huh? I did help. Impulse sighed, shaking his head. Who made the chip? Campbell pressed, looking at each one of them quickly. Impulse bit his bottom lip, trying to imagine anyone. With Scar, what would I do? Did Scar build it? Julius asked in his mind. No, Impulse retorted. Duck was the one who built it. Seems legit, Julius said triumphantly, like he solved the puzzle. Impulse quickly sighed in relief. He did feel a little bad, fusing Duck like that. He knew the hermit could handle it. He could see the puzzled look on Julius's face before Campbell cleared his throat. What does the chip do? Campbell asked curiously. It turns off the functions of the headband. It can short-circuit it and can disable it. And it can turn it off with a simple press. Impulse lifted his head. I'm sure Gerald told you some of what we were able to show him when he tried to torture Grian. Yes, Campbell nodded. How much do you know about Gran, his friends? I don't know where they are, if that's what you're after, Impulse snapped. That is the truth, Julius replied confidently. Not today, no, but it would have been good information if you had it. Campbell nodded. What about your other friends we've been trying to locate? What other friends? Impulse frowned. You know, the ones you were hiding after you rescued them from our trap, Julius scowled. You were in jail at the time. Impulse narrowed his eyes. How did you know? Julius shrugged. Someone told me. What's the matter to you? Impulse saw the image of Julius with another soldier, laughing and talking about something in his mind. The other man describing looking at a screen as he observed the eliminators that attacked his friends. Impulse shook his head, shaking away the image. Julius didn't seem multi-faced as he looked over at Campbell. I'm not sure why you can't figure that out, Impulse shrugged. Why do you have to ask me? Where are they? Campbell nodded at Julius. Home? Julius asked, as if he's trying to confirm the question. They're home? He's being vague on purpose, Campbell assured the young boy, looking over at the hermit. Tell me where they are. Impulse shook his head. I don't know. All I know is that they were taken by the cause to another safe place so that they could figure out what to do and let them be able to return home. I'm sure they're home by now. Campbell nodded. Thank you for your honesty. This is boring. I want more friction, more conflict. Julius yawned as he lifted his head up to the ceiling. Very well, I think it's time for the next part of this conversation, Campbell agreed. Impulse, if you were to come with me, I want to show you something we've been working on lately. Impulse didn't budge as he felt an uneasy feeling creeping down his spine and into his stomach, settling there, looking over at Julius. You know it can hurt you, right? Julius nodded. That can make you feel anything. Maybe even hear your friends scream. He heard a familiar faint scream at the hermit's house, his face starting to warm. It's all in my head. Mr. A has made that clear numerous times when he shouldn't have, Impulse said to the young boy, matter-of-factly. Perhaps we need more time, Campbell paused. He's too stubborn. He's resisting my attempts. He knows how to fend them off. Julius frowned. You sure this was a good one to try on him? Gerald said it would work, Campbell frowned, looking over at Impulse. Looks like you're going to have to break him a little. But dampen that confidence and arrogance, Pikachu. Impulse swallowed as a grin formed on Julius's face. Impulse gasped, startled as he felt like a swarm of angry bees were all around him, stinging him as he stumbled to one knee. "How long, sir?" Julius asked, looking back at the man as Impulse struggled. The swarm grew more and more, crushing him under its weight. I got it right the first time. Falling to his knees. The buzzing grew louder and more intense as he struggled to push back. "Don't you worry. This is only just the beginning," Julius mused in his thoughts. "You won't break me," Impulse insisted. "All of them have tried and failed. Never underestimate the power of the mind. My father once told me that," Julius said coldly. "Same guy who nearly killed one of my friends. The same man who ruined your cousin's life," Impulse snapped angrily as the bees faded away. "However long it takes," Campbell said firmly. As the door opened and closed, Impulse screamed, imagining himself inside a pit swarming with redstone-infused silverfish. He was trapped, alone. The arthropods swarmed around him, their hungry eyes fixed on their target, their pinchers biting into his skin as he screamed again. Chapter 13. About to get a little dark. It's not real. It's not real. It's not real. Impulse could hear the thoughts running through his mind as the pain increased, the silverfish disappearing before turning into something else. The hermit screamed as he found scorpions crawling all around him, on top of him, and on the walls and ceiling. He took a slow, deep breath, trying to think of anything that could help. "Skiz!" Impulse cried in his mind, feeling the words bounce back on him. "He can't help you. You're on your own," a dark voice whispered in his mind. "No one can save you." Suddenly, he found himself out of the room, hanging over the void inside a hanging cage that was swaying against the wind. No, there couldn't be wind. There was no wind in the end. But then how could the dragon fly? How could the dragon fly? A wave of dread washed over him as he stumbled to his feet. "No one even knows where you are," the voice whispered again. "I can tell them. I know how to tell them," Impulse threatened, as Julius' voice chuckled. "Not if you feel helpless," the chilling voice whispered. Another wave of dread crashed against him, shaking the bars of the cage as it swung wildly from side to side. Impulse grabbed onto the bars before he fell. "I'm not scared of you," Impulse said defiantly, feeling another wave of dread crashing over into him as he heard the flapping of wings. A distant roar filled his ears. The dragon. The dreaded dragon. "Skiz! Where are you?" Impulse called out. "He can't help you." "No, he can't," the voice whispered. "Stop it! You're lying!" Impulse snapped angrily. "My friends are looking for me. They have my back." "Do they?" Julius asked aloud. Julius approached him. "What if you did something so despicable? Would they still want you? What if you betrayed them? Would they still want to look for you?" "I would never betray my friends," Impulse said firmly. He could feel the humming of the headband in his mind as another cold wave of dread crashed into him. Each layer seemed to drown him in hopelessness. He tried to fight it, tried to hold on to some sort of hope. Please, you can hear me." "I can't hear you," Julius sneered. "Don't even bother trying to use your link. No one's been able to use it that way. It's not its intended use. How many people do you know to have a link like this?" Impulse raised an eyebrow. "I've been able to hear his thoughts before." Julius laughed. "In your dreams. Literally, in your dreams. You can't possibly pull it off now. And even if you did, what's it gonna do? It's not like he's gonna suddenly be here to rescue you." "You'd never understand." Impulse narrowed his eyes. "Let's see." Julius paused, probably looking into his mind. Scar and Ryan were able to do that with their connection. Gerald did mention that their bond was powerful. Gerald would find any way to get what he wants, even to the means of luring people into a trap. Impulse shook his head. "You're all just looking for the same things we are." "You're a bunch of traitors." Julius scowled. "You'll give each other up to save your own skin." Impulse screamed again as an ocean of dread swallowed him whole. He felt like he was falling, sinking, darkness swallowing any hope for light. You're pathetic. All of you. Lot. Julius added, my father was right to send my uncle away. He was useless. He was a threat. He didn't belong here. Well played. Bull snapped. He shouldn't even be alive. Julius sneered. Should have died with the rest of them. I wish he had. Impulse felt his blood boiling as he strained to get to his feet. Anger filling his eyes as Julius stood straight, startled by the hermit's newfound strength and courage. Take that back, Impulse said in a dark tone. No, I won't take that back. Julius lifted his chin. My father got to watch Mr. A kill Blake's father. He told me it was the most satisfying thing he'd ever seen. Finally, justice was served. Impulse lunged at the young man, screaming as he fell to the floor at the man's feet, as he felt every part of his body on fire, writhing in pain, and he closed his eyes. Julius only laughed. You don't have audio on, or do I not have audio on? I think I'm fine. Alright, if you're just reading like that, that's fine. Yeah. You can't hear me, YouTuber. Not while I have this on. One thought, and that could make your heart stop beating. Stop beating. Or at least make you think that. I can send a lethal shock, though. Julius boasted. I could torture you by replaying your worst fears, your worst nightmares. I can make you relive your worst memories. Nothing escapes me. Nothing will stop me. I will break you. Oh, people are just going live. That's what it is. You won't break me, Impulse repeated defiantly. You're strong. Julian smiled darkly. Makes this all the more fun. Impulse screamed again, feeling the sensation of falling, grabbing onto the rim of the cage, feeling his hands burned as he screamed. He screamed as he fell, trying to buy Scar time to get away so he wouldn't get hurt. Worse, he screamed as the tower around him began to crumble, crushing him against his weight. Wait, that's not a memory, Impulse pointed out, snapping himself out of the cycle, the dread seeming to push him deeper and deeper into the depths of despair. I will keep you down. You can't keep this up forever, the whispering returned, as he felt a wave after wave of fear, seeing Tango lying on the couch, burned and bruised, seeing Devon disappear with a puff of smoke after saving Green's life, hearing Xavier scream before there was an explosion. No, Impulse whispered, trying not to think about those moments. He tried to imagine a memory or an image, being with the girls, having a picnic, talking about what they were going to do to stop the men, seeing Skizz walk through the door, simply delighted to see him after he'd returned from XB's base after Jevon found him, seeing Blake show up for the first time after his previous protector before had betrayed him. Tears sprung in the hermit's eyes. He saw Green's face light up with excitement, heard Scar laughing, seeing him cuddling with Jelly on the armchair. He saw himself helping the girls, work on creating the medical kits, coming to them for help. They were a team. They did this together. I'm here, Impulse whispered, out into the chasm in his mind, reaching his hand out desperately in the hope someone would take it. I think I need to do something different, Julius frowned as Impulse opened his eyes again, looking down at the hermit. Julius is looking down at the hermit if you can't tell. You stay here and I need to talk to Campbell. If I hear an ounce of you thinking about escaping, I will shock you so hard you won't even see it coming. Impulse said nothing, sitting up as the headband hummed, the dread still heavy, like a weight on his chest. He couldn't shake it, couldn't ignore it. He looked up into the young man's mind, as his blood ran cold. He knew what the young man was going to ask the man. He hated it. Julius stopped, turning back to him as he smiled. They both shuddered at the smile as the soldier walked toward him. Hello, how's everybody doing? We all doing great. Coming in to say hello. I don't normally stream this late. I mean, it's not really that late. It's like, you can see, like 5 p.m. 5 p.m. And we're in chapter 14. Nice. Not very long. I'm just taking my time with this one. Why not? Slowing down, relaxing, enjoying. Except for the interruption right at the beginning. I mean, it wasn't that big of an interruption. Yeah. Chapter 14. We shall continue. If no one wants to say anything more. Yeah. Honestly, I don't expect a lot of people to tune in. Yeah. Impulse is probably busy anyway. I don't expect him to even know this exists. This is just perspective storytelling and all that stuff. The only person he seems to know is Stappy. And that's really it. Like, do I know you? I don't know. Do I know you? Who are you? Are you a friend? Foe? Are you with the target? Are you with Stampy? Are you with the hermits? Are you with King Cleo? Or are you with King Ren? Former King Ren. All the king characters do not exist in the storyline. Neither, like, and the Meryl arc was, like, cut short in the storyline. Very short. Which probably means mycelium resistance didn't happen. Which is interesting. Just an interesting thought. A lot of wars that didn't happen. Besides, a lot of things can happen. Chapter 14. I think we'll keep this simple. Impulse. Julius said darkly, kneeling beside the hermit, his dark gray eyes meeting the hermit. I can either send someone to fetch one of your friends, or for you, or you can cooperate. I have no problem going myself and torturing one of them. Tango, Grian, Scar, Skiz. He raised an eyebrow. Leave my friends alone. Impulse narrowed his eyes. I will, only if you cooperate, Julius warned. If you don't, I will find one of your friends, drag them here, and force you to watch as I torture them in front of you. Then I can make you replay that memory over and over again until you crack. Is that clear? What did you just do? It's all good. We all good. Impulse closed his eyes, taking a slow, deep breath. Also, I can't have you trying to contact them either, so I'll keep this on. Julius tapped his headband. If I ever catch you trying to message your friends, I will do the very same thing. I will make sure you watch as I finish them myself, just like my father watched as his brother-in-law was tortured to death. What about his sister? What happened to his sister? Impulse insisted. Julius hesitated, his mind showing nothing. I actually don't know what happened to her. Probably killed too, creating a YouTuber. Father wouldn't allow that, Impulse snapped. Maybe he would, Julius narrowed his eyes. She befriended the enemy. She fell in love with one. The young man laughed. She deserved whatever she had coming for her. But that's beside the point. If you cooperate, your friends will be spared. If not, then I'll drag one of them here and make you watch as I slowly drain everything from them until there's nothing left. And Bull shook his head. You can't do that. Watch me, and I will. Julius glowered. Are you in, or am I going to have to teach you a lesson? I'm in, Impulse said shakily, fear shaking his inner core. What has they come to rescue me? Julius smiled. Well, then you better hope you'll get out alive. Now, come. We can't keep Campbell waiting. Julius got to his feet, offering a hand to the hermit. Impulse reluctantly took it. Getting to his feet, Impulse glanced back nervously at the locked door, wondering how much of that kid had felt. He had to have felt that. even if he hadn't heard him. He followed Julius to the door to the other side of the room. The man opened it, gesturing for him to walk him through. He walked through the door, looking up to see a machine in the center of the room. It was about as tall as Campbell, who was observing a few of his men working on the contraption. "Is he ready?" Campbell asked. "I couldn't break him the way Gerald showed us, but he's cooperating for now," Julian said confidently. "I threatened to drag one of his friends out here and torture them in front of him if he chooses to refuse your request." "What request?" Impulse asked. Nervously, Julius closed the door behind him. Then maybe we should get one, to make sure it's a solid deal," Campbell offered, similar to what Mr. A did in the past. Impulse tensed nervously, remembering seeing Scar lying on the floor, the dark, stretching black veins all over his arms, legs, and crawling up his neck. Julian had been a mess, trying to keep him from being taken when he'd broken through the wall to help rescue them. Taking him a good week or two after that to get him back to his normal self. "We'll see how he does first," Julius replied. "I doubt it'll be easy to snatch one of them up at the girl's bases. Then maybe lure one out," Campbell offered. Julius nodded. "And again, I could use the secret tunnels." He looked at Impulse. "Though the invisibility detectors might be a problem." "How secure is the tower?" "Or that tower?" Campbell asked calmly. "The one you noticed them building." "Impulse, do you want to answer that?" Julius offered. "It won't be easy to get in there. I made sure of it," Impulse said confidently. "But it's not impossible," Julius pointed out. "What about anyone else outside the walls?" "Can we just get on to why we're here rather than threatening to kidnap my friends?" Impulse snapped. Campbell nodded. "Very well. If you promise to cooperate, I don't see a problem holding that off. Though I do know Gerald will want to see Grian again." "Gerald's in prison," Impulse pointed out. "He is, but I'm sure we can break him out in due time." Julius shrugged, along with the rest of them. "Why would you do that?" Impulse tilted his head. "Who's saying I'm going to do that?" Campbell looked over at the hermit, raising an eyebrow as he gestured to the machine. "This machine has the ability to open any portal I would like it to go to, without being restricted to a certain set of coordinates. At least that is the hope. This is where you come in. You're going to help me finish the design and make it work. In turn, helping in their escape." Paul swallowed, taking a nervous step back. "Having second thoughts now?" Julius sneered. No, Paul said quickly. "But why? It'll just mean you're not in control anymore." "Oh, he will be," Julius lifted his chin. "You see, many of these men and women are under the state of unrest. Mr. A and RJ have neglected them for far too long, seeing them as disposable to their cause. Campbell, on the other hand, is well respected and honored. He is only freeing them if the group agrees. We all agree Gerald should be set free, as he is the better of the three. If we come to a decision, we will ultimately eliminate the two brothers entirely. They fled for long enough. We do not need them. Eliminating them means their real allies can't use them against us." "Thank you, Julius," Campbell nodded. "We plan to have a vote tomorrow. Do you think you can get the portal ready to use by then?" "Are these portals able to go anywhere?" Impulse asked nervously. "If I desire them to, yes," Campbell said, looking over at the hermit. "He needs to take and cast in the agreement," Julius said quickly, holding up a finger. "Should I send a report to fetch one of the other hermits?" "Wait, okay, I'll do it," Impulse said quickly. A wave of guilt washed over him as the words left his lips. He felt helpless. No matter what he did, it would eventually lead to his friends getting hurt. He looked over at Julius, looking into his mind again, hearing the cold, hard laughter in his small meeting room with the young man and Campbell. "Julius think he'd fall for it?" Julius asked somewhat skeptically. "He's naive. If what Gerald says is true, he'll do anything to protect his friends. He will have to realize he's creating a death trap for them." "He won't even realize he's creating a death trap for them," Campbell mused. Impulse gasped, unable to stop himself. "What?" Julius demanded, the hermit blinking the image away. The man then smiled. "Sir, he read my mind. You're a bunch of Gerald loyalists. You don't care about Mr. Anna or RJ at all. Impulse trembled. You just want to see the world burn. Starting with your friends. That way you have nothing left. Julius beamed darkly. So, what will it be? Will you help us, or will I have to send someone to get one of your friends? I can't do this. Impulse shook his head, seeing his hand shaking. He could see the images of his faces blown to pieces, burning in the daylight, glowing with red, soaked in blood. A wave of fear sent the hermit to his knees. You don't have a choice in the matter, Campbell said darkly, grabbing the hermit by the arm and as he pulled him up, pushing him toward the machine. The other men scrambled away, avoiding him like he was infected with something. He stared at the machine. It was a sleek metal. There were buttons, switches, and dials. Cautiously approached it. I can't just... Impulse saw it weakly. Tears stung in the hermit's eyes. We will come back to check on you, Julius called back from the door. If I hear an ounce of an escape, then count on one of your friends dead on sight. Impulse winced, nodding his head, his legs silly. He closed his eyes, taking a slow, deep breath. What would they do if he sabotaged it? What could they really do if he just did what they said, but purposely out of the flaw? Don't even think about it. Julius scolded in the hermit's mind. Get out of my head, jerk. Impulse snapped angrily. You say you're not scared of me, but all I see is fear. You really do care about your friends. You're all the same. Pathetic. Can't even defend yourselves, needing the others to protect you. Julius taunted, an image forming in his mind, gasping as he saw the young man attacking Blake, knocking him out as he slammed against the wall. Pathetic weakling can't even protect his own charge. Julius's memory, his voice were taunted, and his tears sprung to the hermit's eyes. You're pathetic. Impulse snapped back, with the face of reality that your father never loved you. We spent hours doing his work. He never had time for you. You look good saying that, hermit. Julius warned darkly. You just gonna go back on your promise? Impulse pressed. Never made a promise. You did. There's nothing stopping me from just messing. Julius cackled in his thoughts. Although that wouldn't be as fun. I do hope you have some worlds in you to resist. I'd be honored to torture your friends myself. Leave them alone, Impulse growled. Not the one on the limit here. Julius still remained by the door, holding it open. Julius, come on. We have things to discuss. Campbell cut back. He doesn't need you taunting him any more than you have. Don't push it too far, like last time. Last time? Impulse shuddered, walking reluctantly to the device. Julius didn't respond to his question, nor did he need to, as Impulse fiddled with the controls, testing it. He noticed there were a few glitches as an idea sparked in his mind, catching himself as he looked over his shoulder. It would be too easy. Plus, these men would certainly stop him if he tried anything. He sighed, shaking his head. As much as he wished he could outsmart Julius, he'd find out the truth eventually. I need to blow my nose real quick. Any bugs? I am Berlin. Oh. I is back, and I don't have water. Chapter 15. Get inside, the guard grunted, shoving Impulse into the cell once more. The hermit stumbled, steadying himself as the door slammed behind him. He wasn't sure how he'd been forced to tinker with the machine. It had already been almost completed by the time he'd been given the task. Guilt filled him as the image of the tower tumbled down on top of him once more, hearing a familiar scream. The headband hummed as he turned back to the door, going to it as he looked out the window into the hallway. Where was Julius right now? Where was Campbell? He'd done his best to cooperate the best he could. What if it wasn't enough? What if it never was? He looked down at his hands, seeing them trembling. His stomach rose. Hello? Can anyone give me something to eat? I'm hungry. Impulse said loudly, his words bouncing off the walls. You're just finding an excuse, Julia's voice snapped. You know I'm not. You can read my mind. Impulse snapped back. Your kind deserves to starve. The young man taunted. You don't want me to starve to death, do you? That wouldn't be good news to bring back to Campbell, Impulse reminded him. Let's just get someone else, like Tango, maybe Mumbo. Julius chuckled. Why are you threatening me? I've done everything you asked me to do. Impulse insisted. Campbell is still concerned about your true loyalties. Julius thought. Of course he is. Why would I want to? Of course he is. Why would I want to help a bunch of murderers hurt my friends? I'm loyal to my friends, not him. Impulse snapped. You work for him now, Impulse. You have no other loyalties, Julius warned. He wants to make sure of that. A sick feeling filled him. What did you do? What made you say I did? Please have something to eat. Impulse persisted, closing his eyes as dread filled him. Maybe in the morning, if you're good, Julius faltered. Impulse sighed, giving up on the man as the device continued its senseless hum. He walked over to where a warm blanket was, in the corner of the room. He lay down on the cold hard floor, pulling the blanket over him, staring up at the ceiling aimlessly. What were the men doing? They knew he didn't want to do what they wanted him to do. Why did they want to break him so badly? Why did they want to take everything from him? He closed his eyes, the questions invading his mind, trying to push the others aside to get his attention. He wanted to get away, to forget about what was happening. His mind wandered as he found himself in a strange place, standing on some dirt. As he looked around, a purple void filled the sky, in place of the blue sky was used to. A chasm could be seen before him. He heard a faint voice. The voice was soft at first, but it only grew louder and louder. Impulse? Impulse, where are you, buddy? Skiz's voice finally made audible sense as dread filled the hermit. I catch you trying to contact one of your friends. I will drag them here and torture them until there's nothing left. Julius's voice echoed through the void. He slunk away, trying to get away from the chasm. Skiz's voice only grew louder. Dumbledore, please! Say something, anything! Skiz called out. I don't even know if it's even working. I know you've done it before to me, but let's see if maybe I could reach you. Skiz's voice sounded sad. A lump formed in the hermit's throat. His tears stung in his eyes, blurring his vision. Words caught in his throat. He so desperately wanted to call out to his friend, to tell him that he could hear him. Fear clung to him as he stumbled, falling to the earth as the sky slowly turned to crimson red. I feel you, buddy, but I can't see you. Skiz's voice finally said, Why are you so scared? You know we're looking for you, right? He did. He knew they were looking for him. He had no doubt about that. He had hoped that they would find him, but with Julius's threat echoing in his mind, he felt trapped, bound down by fear and despair, chained to the earth. Dread threatened to consume him. Julius's distant laughter. Was the young man affecting his dream through his headband? Through that headband? Did the man even realize that he was doing this? He's asking for too much. Who? Dumbledore, where are you? Skiz called back. Tears slipped down the hermit's cheeks. Unsure he could breathe against the overwhelming fear. He felt like it was dragging him into the darkness, imprisoning him in his own nightmare. Skiz, help me! Impulse cried desperately, seeing something small in the sky. Deep blood-red sky. They were too small to be dragons. They looked more like scorpions, with their crescent moon shape. Flying scorpions. It took him a moment to realize they were diving toward him as he screamed in terror. I'm coming, buddy. We're coming, Skiz insisted. Maybe you should hope they all make it out alive. Julius's voice taunted again. You're all pathetic, unable to defend yourselves, depending on others to protect you. The scorpions hurtled toward the hermit as he struggled against the restraints pinning him down. He couldn't move, paralyzed by literal fear, his eyes widening in the horrors of the creatures before he saw arrows of light flying into the sky, shooting each beast as it shrieked, disappearing in a ball of smoke. Impulse? I'm here. Skiz's thought spoke gently as he felt someone reach out and grab him by the hand. Let me pull you out. I can't. Impulse insisted, still seeing the red void above. I'm not letting him hurt you. Skid insisted. Impulse turned. See his friend holding his hand, trying to pull him out. Their eyes met as a lump formed in his throat. Julius wants to torture one of you in front of me, Impulse said weakly, as he felt the weight of dread pushing him down harder. Campo wants me to do something. I can't. Can you tell me where you are? Skid asked him firmly. Impulse nodded, closing his eyes as he focused, pushing all his dread and fear, shooting it towards Skid. The YouTuber yelped. I almost said it! Oh. I mentioned the live chat feed that I mistyped Skid as a hermit many times. You've never seen it happen. You've never seen it happen because I've managed to edit it. But right there, I almost called him a hermit. Oh my gosh. If he ends up being a hermit after this, I'm just... I love this guy. He deserves to be a hermit, you know? Even I'm almost instinctively calling him one. The YouTuber yelped in surprise as Impulse's eyes snapped open, gasping for breath as he heard a door unlock. Pain shot through the headband as he gasped, sitting up as he touched the device, looking up to see Julius, his expression dark and ominous. He was holding something in his hand, a bowl of soup. You remember my warning, don't you, about trying to contact your friends? Julius raised an eyebrow, tapping his headband simply. Skid tried to contact me, Impulse snapped. I had nothing to do with it. He would have given up if he hadn't tortured me. Julius only smiled coldly, putting down the bowl of soup in front of the hermit. Next time I see you, we'll have guests joining us. No, please, Impulse screamed. Can't help wanted it regardless. I just love seeing you squirm. Julius beamed. Please don't do this. You can't do this, Impulse insisted, pushing the blanket aside, getting to his feet. What are you going to do to stop me? I've already sent someone over to get a lay out of the land. It's your fault you gave in to the temptation. You should have resisted harder, the man shrugged. Impulse clenched his fists, wanting so badly to lunge at the man and tear him from limb to limb. He'd been nothing but a pain. Impulse bit back a thought that crept into his mind, taking a slow deep breath, watching the man leave as he locked the door, falling to his knees, despair. No matter what he did, he couldn't stop these men. Couldn't stop them from getting what they wanted. He closed his eyes, feeling a heavy weight fall onto his shoulders, unable to move from that spot for a long moment, staring at the bowl of mushroom stew. How are we on to plenty? Chapter 16. Impulse couldn't go back to sleep after that. Not sure what would have happened if he did. He still wasn't sure if Julius had some influence over the dream, but the man had known he'd been talking to Skiz. It really hadn't been hidden all that well. What was the point of punishment if they were just going to do it anyway? What was he doing? Why were they doing this? Why would they want the enemy to do their dirty work for him? Why him, of all people, of all things, is all. He closed his eyes, leaning against the wall. The fear hadn't left him, even though he knew Julius wasn't hurting him anymore. He wasn't tormenting him with feelings, emotions, or imagery. Apologies. He wanted to relax, to be able to keep going. He knew his friends were coming. Whatever you do, please be careful. Impulse spoke into the chasm of his mind, not caring about Julius' dread anymore. He was already punishing him. He wasn't sure if his friend had heard him, just staring at the ceiling, letting out a defeated sigh. Suddenly, he felt a wave of reassurance fill him inside, warming the cold darkness, shooing it away. The dread seemed lighter. The fear seemed distant. Did you feel that? Julius' thought casually slipped into his thoughts. You're not welcome here, Impulse snapped, clinging onto the hope as firmly as he could. The man couldn't take that from him. His mind drifted back to Scar again. His firm defiance, not willing to give the men what they wanted, fighting back with everything still standing through the end of it all. He may not be physically strong, but Impulse knew his mental strength was stronger than anyone he'd met. He could hear Julius chuckling in the crevice of his mind. Get out of my head! I love watching you struggle, Julius said matter-of-factly. I'll see you soon. Impulse opened his eyes again, hearing a familiar scream as an image formed in his mind. Julius was standing in Green and Scar's tower, standing on the balcony, as he casually placed a redstone torch by some TNT as he flew off. Impulse could see the man was carrying someone over his shoulder as he heard a scream faintly in an explosion. That's not real, Impulse insisted, dread bubbling up again. The hope he was clinging to still held strong. Maybe it was a light in the darkness. He couldn't let go of it. He looked down, seeing a ball of light floating just above his head, casting out the darkness, casting away the fear that threatened to overwhelm him. If you read Michael Bay, you might know the parallel here. Maybe. Are you sure? Julius sneered. His security wasn't easy to sneak by, but it was easy to block out one of the rooms off and grab one of them. The man chuckled at the thought, replaying the explosion again. Impulse heard the scream. I thought Gerald wanted him alive, Impulse insisted. Yes, the fall isn't far, Julius mused. He would have been crushed, Impulse snapped. Julius snickered in response. Where's Scar? Impulse demanded, getting to his feet. Patience, we're just waiting for the all clear, Julius replied. The team is almost fully complete. What do you mean? Impulse asked nervously. You can read my mind, can't you? Or am I too far away? The man taunted. Impulse scowled, imagining a ball of rage hitting the man square in the face. To Impulse's surprise, he heard a yelp of pain across the hall. What did you do? I thought you couldn't do that. I guess anything is possible in the mind, Impulse realized, gasping in pain as he stumbled, falling against the wall. Do it again, and I'll make sure you regret it, Julius snapped darkly. Leave me first out of this, Impulse said firmly. It's not my choice to make, Impulse, Julius reminded him. I don't care what you do to me, Impulse said defiantly. What do you think you can do? You're not going to break me. Not helping you. I'll just have to find someone who will, the man jeered. I have a few options, like your friend Doc. Impulse laughed, the tread forced to retreat by the burst of joy. Good luck with that one. Is that a challenge? Julius growled. If that's what you want to think it is, you're not kidding me. So you might as well let us go. Impulse insisted. You both aren't going anywhere, Julius said darkly, especially since you're part of the resistance. You've helped them far too long now. It's about time they paid the price for your loyalty. You won't break me, Impulse urged, gasping in pain as he stumbled as he felt the floor fall beneath him. It took him a split second to realize that it wasn't actually happening. He was fine. He was fine. Don't try to reach out to him. I will know if you do, Julius warned darkly. I'll break him in front of you. Your threats are meaningless to me now, Impulse said boldly. I don't think you'll be feeling the same way when we're done, Julius chuckled, the man leaving his thoughts in silence. Impulse took a slow, deep breath, trying to calm himself, reassuring himself that he was fine. This dread, this fear was all in his head. He wasn't afraid. Julius wouldn't break him. Thanks, dude, Impulse whispered into the chasm, unsure if anyone would hear him. Was it Skiz? Scar? Someone else? He wasn't sure. It didn't matter. He would get through this. He could get through this. They both would. 17. Impulse heard footsteps approaching the door half an hour later after his mental conversation with Julius. At least that was how much time he was fairly sure had passed. It was hard to tell when there was no windows and no sense of time. The footsteps grew louder as Impulse stood straighter. The dread and fear only a soft whisper in his mind, rather than drowning him, pushing him deeper and deeper into a sense of despair. He wasn't alone. These men wouldn't get to him. Even if they pushed him down 1,000,000 times, he'd keep getting back up. Stubborn. He is stubborn. A guard appeared at the door. Excuse me. A guard appeared at the door after a moment, unlocking the iron door as he opened it. "They're waiting for you." Impulse held his head high, walking out of the room. The man right behind him. He couldn't hear Julius in his thoughts right now, but he had a feeling the man was being wary this time, especially since he had just attacked him mentally. The hermit focused on his thoughts lingering in his mind, looking for Julius when a thought crossed his mind. "He's looking for me? Ha! I'm right here!" Julius cackled as an image appeared in his mind. Julius was standing with 3 other people, one of them being Campbell, Julius' father, who had somehow gotten out of his prison from the time of his capture until now. Lots of course had happened before Julius ambushed him in his room, and after Blake had called to see if Royster was still behind bars. His attention went to the 3rd man whom he recognized immediately, as a chill ran down his spine. "What?
When Dad gets home, can you let him know that it's just you and him for dinner?
What? 1 minute. What?
When Dad gets home, can you let him know it's just you and him for dinner?
Okay. I will. Alright. I gotta make sure I heard that right. I did. "Gerald's here?" Impulse asked the guard quickly. The guard stopped. The hermit stopped walking as well. "How did you know that?" "Julius," Impulse stated. The guard groaned. "He's always ruining the surprise. He can't keep his mouth shut." "Apparently I picked a good time to stream, huh?" "Yeah, I picked a good time to stream. Yay!" I need a drink. "I know," Impulse nodded. "Maybe that's why it's failing to break me." "Well, if he can't, Gerald will," the guard smiled. "He's done it before." "He didn't with Scar," the hermit snapped. "Don't be so hasty to assume," Impulse, the guard warned. "He would have eventually if you and your friends hadn't shown up." "I doubt it," Impulse said confidently. The man chuckled. "We shall see." "Then why isn't Gerald wearing the headband if your guys really want to break me?" Impulse pressed, as the guard pushed him forward, telling him to keep moving. Impulse turned to face the man, refusing to move. "If you really wanted to show how capable you are, then why did you hire someone like Julius in the first place? I've been able to resist his attempts again and again. Even his threats against my friends seem meaningless now." "He is also the man who attacked you and burned both Brian and your friend Tango. The guard reminded him. "If I remember correctly. But you didn't break them." Impulse narrowed his eyes. "I'm not scared of them. Of him. I'm not helping any of you." "It's already too late for that. You already did." The guard smiled. "What do you mean?" Impulse scowled. "One, you helped us create the portal to allow us to free Gerald," the man pointed out. "And 2, we were able to use it to capture one of your friends, Scar." Impulse's blood went cold. The man hadn't shown him how they got into the tower, only how he got out. It made sense. The camera on the balcony wouldn't see him until he was outside, and by that time it was too late. Dread started to nibble at his heart as his legs turned lead. "You even gave us a great way of testing the capability of those headbands so that we can make them better." The guard paused. "Actually, where you can make them better. I'm not helping you." Impulse lifted his chin defiantly. "You already have," the guard sneered, grabbing the hermit by the arm. "Why is Julius not doing anything to make you cooperate?" "He's a coward," Impulse said bitterly. "Doesn't want to admit that he failed." "Just getting started, hermit," Julius' voice said darkly, his mind echoing across the chasm. The guard laughed again. Very well, come with me. Otherwise, you'll have to face far more dire consequences. Impulse didn't resist, his mind whirling around his questions. What more had the men already done with the machine that they hadn't told him? What could they do with the machine? How many people had he incidentally hurt or killed? The man shoved him through the open door onto a balcony that looked down to an open room below. There were 2 other guards standing with him, along with Campbell, who stood at the farthest corner, his arms behind his back. The man didn't look toward him, or even seemed to hear him enter the room. His eyes were fixed on what was happening below. Impulse followed the man's gaze down from the balcony, seeing a room. It wasn't a large room, just big enough to fit the necessities. One of these necessities, he noted, was a cylindrical machine next to some control panels. He could see Royster standing by the control panel, fiddling with something, perhaps to make sure it was working properly. Beside the man was Julius, looking over his shoulder curiously before looking up at the audience that had formed on the balcony. The young man smiled at Impulse, still wearing the headband around his forehead. The hermit ignored the man, looking to the far right corner of the room, and seeing someone standing by some sort of open entranceway. Impulse didn't have to guess who it was as he pushed himself from the wall, walking over to the machine. The machine looked different from the portal machine that Impulse had been forced to work complete. He wondered if the man was going to make him finish this one. Don't worry, Impulse, Juliet said, smirking, as he went over to stand by the cylinder, tapping on the glass, the clink echoing through the room. My father made this machine. He's been working on it for a while. I think your friend's kids may recognize this. Or B-dubs. He doesn't like having other people mess with things. Impulse swallowed, taking a step closer to the railing, feeling the familiar faint hum of the headband. He was able to get a clear view of the machine. Grabbing onto the railing, feeling a wave of unease fill him as he saw what was inside. Chapter 18. He blinked, half hoping it was just his imagination, hoping that the headband was playing tricks on him. It wasn't. He knew it wasn't. This was real. Tears of anger stung in the hermit's eyes as his eyes rested on the sleeping form inside. Scar was strapped to a cot by his wrists and ankles. He seemed unharmed as he peacefully slept, but Impulse knew very well that it wouldn't last long. What have you done to him? Nothing yet, Gerald spoke up for the first time, looking up at the hermit curiously. I've been hearing you've been giving my allies some trouble. Impulse straightened. And what if I am? Doesn't give you the right to hurt my friends. Gerald smiled, looking down at the sleeping figure below him. Doctor, won't you tell our guest here how this machine works? Royster looked up at the man's voice, nodding as he stepped away from the machine for a moment. A smile formed on the man's face. It's pretty simple, actually. I've been testing how we can manipulate emotions and torment our enemies. Your friend's kids helped us with this one. When I was testing his Western capabilities, after that explosion, it inspired me to try to figure out how to replicate that in his sense. He looked over at Scar, who hadn't moved. I decided to try without a headband first, just to see how it goes. I shouldn't need it, however, as I can control Julius, who cleared his throat. Gerald had an idea to add a little spice to the magic. He went over to the sleeping hermit. There's a few needles in here that will help amplify the feeling of agony and pain. They won't necessarily hurt him on their own, but with the help of the machine, you'll be regretting your disobedience. I wasn't the one who contacted his kids and told him where I was. Impulse snapped. He contacted me, and I would have regretfully ignored him if you hadn't tortured me. You still told him, Julian shook his head. You broke your promise. Don't blame me for what Campbell or Gerald want to do as a consequence. Impulse tightened his grip on the railing, staring down at the cylinder again. A lump formed in his throat, reaching out his mental hand toward the hermit, feeling the wave of assurance filling him. Impulse lifted his chin, looking over at Gerald. There's nothing you can do to break me. Oh, I beg to differ, Gerald smiled, nodding over at the doctor. Start the machine. A cry caught in the hermit's throat as Royster happily turned around, pressing a button on the machine as it whirred to life. The cylinder began to glow a soft golden light. He heard a muffled gasp as Royster pressed another button. You could stop this, Campbell reminded him, speaking for the first time, putting a hand on the hermit's shoulder. All it takes is a few words. Campbell shook his head. I will not betray my friends. I'm not like any of you. Not a monster. Campbell frowned, not saying anything. Impulse looked back at the scene below, a chill running down his spine as he heard a blood-curdling scream. He felt his chest constricting as he tried to hold himself steady with the bars. He wanted it to stop. He wanted to go down there and stop the machine. He doubted he'd be able to, hearing another scream fill the room. I'm sorry. Impulse's mind called through the chasm, reaching his mental hand to his friend, feeling like a hint joining his. Don't give them what they want. A firm but pained voice groaned in his mind. Tears slipped down the hermit's face as he saw the tear-stricken face of his friend, now wide awake, his wide eyes looking into his own. Scar seeing him through the pain. They'll kill you. Impulse felt his thoughts shaking. No. Scar's thoughts reassured him. Impulse could feel the echo of the agony in his mind. Suddenly, the hermit had an idea. Don't you even think about it, Julius scowled, startling the hermit for a moment. What is he thinking about? Gerald asked curiously. He's thinking about blasting me with Scar's agony and pain. Julius crossed his arms. The headband came to life as the hermit screamed, falling to his knees. How does that feel now, huh? Stop, please, Impulse pleaded, feeling like a wave of red-hot coals had fallen on top of him. Everything was on fire, consuming him with fear. Please! Julius smiled, Scar's muffled screams filling the room once more. You made your choice. You're no better than the rest of us. You're a liar. Impulse put his forehead against the railing, gasping in pain. He closed his eyes, feeling the agony wash over him. Reaching out to Scar again. I'm sorry, he repeated in his mind, whispering to his friend like they were beside each other. It's not your fault, Scar replied gently, his voice sounding weak. Impulse opened his eyes, his vision blurred by tears as the headband died down. Gerald stood beside Julius with a hand on his shoulder. The boy looked almost disappointed. Just then, a loud explosion shook the floor beneath them, as the hermit fell the rest of the way to his hands and knees. The sound came from the hallway behind them, as the explosion rang in his ears, echoing through his body. Hope filled him again. Hope was here. It had to be. Chapter 19. Kiss! Impulse cried, surprised at himself as he felt someone grab him from behind. We need to get the prisoners out of here, Campbell said matter-of-factly. Impulse was pulled to his feet, seeing Royster press another button as the machine went still. The glass cylinder opening. Scar was still awake, gasping in pain, his eyes heavy. Julius, take Impulse to the portal. Gerald, your father and I will meet you with Scar later. We need a distraction. Yes, sir. Julius disappeared under the balcony, appearing again from a ladder obscured by a couple of chests. Julius ran over to Campbell, grabbing Impulse just as the door slammed open. Impulse looked up, seeing Skiz peeking into the room. Let him go, Julius, Skiz warned, lunging at the young man. Before Julius could react, the guard with them tackled the YouTuber as they both flew over the edge of the railing. Skiz! Impulse screamed, hearing Julius' amused chuckle as the hermit gasped in pain, coughing as something seemed to squeeze the life out of him. I'm coming, buddy! Skiz called back as two other figures appeared. Impulse gasped, feeling the headband increasing, wincing at the sound of a soft crackle. Step aside or I'll kill him, Julius warned, seeing Blake and Messiah standing there by the door, blocking his way out. Campbell had already disappeared down the ladder. It only takes one thought, and I'll finish it. Let him go, Julius, Blake warned, pulling out a sword. Why? So you can kick my butt like you did last time? Julius scoffed, laughing at the thought. I remember knocking you out when you were supposed to be protecting your charge. I remember you being unable to get through a locked door. Come on, cousin, you have to be better than that if you want to be a part of this group Rose roped you into. You're embarrassing. Impulse looked toward the railing, seeing Gerald walking out of the entranceway. Campbell and Royster were right behind him. Scar slung limply over Royster's shoulder. He opened his mouth to call out, groaning as the weight of 1,000 anvils pressed against his chest. A pearl flew overhead, shattering behind Impulse and Julius. The young man yelped in surprise as shock jolted through the headband. Impulse groaned again, clasping to the floor. "Get the headband!" Skids shouted firmly, pinning Julius down. "I've got him distracted." "Not for long," Julius groaned, trying to shove the YouTuber off him. Blake put his blade away, and he came to Impulse's side, pulling out a small chip, blazing on the headband. Immediately the humming died down, the hermit able to breathe. "Scar, Campbell." Impulse coughed, the pain and fear slowly fading away. "Matthias, go get Scar. I'll get Impulse and Skids out of here," Blake ordered, over his shoulder. Matthias nodded, jumping off the railing as his wings spread out, gliding to the entrance before disappearing in pursuit of the 3 men and their captive. "You're going to be okay." Impulse nodded, tears falling down his face as he heard a click, the headband falling into the boy's hand. "Get Julius's headband, too. It might be important." Impulse... Excuse me. Blake smiled, looking over to Skids just as Impulse heard a grunt from behind him. He looked up, seeing Skids flying backward, groaning in pain as he hit the railing, crumpling to the balcony floor. A scream caught in the hermit's throat as Julius got to his feet, holding a dagger in his hand. The dagger was trickling with blood. "Skids!" Blake got to his feet, charging at Julius just as another guard appeared at the door, followed by 2 more behind him. The guard grabbed Blake just as Julius caught up to the YouTuber. "Seems I'm still better than you," Julius smirked at the Blake, lifting Skids off the floor by the shirt. Impulse swallowed, seeing the YouTuber's side was soaking in blood. "You can't even protect your friends from me." Skids screamed as Julius hit his mark, letting the man go as he disappeared over the railing again. Impulse heard a thud, scrambling to his feet, running to the railing. Skids was lying on his back, his arms and legs splayed out. Impulse instinctively jumped off the edge of the railing, landing gracefully on the ground, running over to the YouTuber. "Double tap." Skids managed a weak smile, looking up at the hermit, who'd fallen to his knees beside him. "You're not hurt, are you?" "No." Impulse's voice caught, tears falling down his face, looking up when he heard glass shattering again, hearing a shout from above on the balcony. Julius started heading toward them as the hermit tensed. "Stay away from me." Julius smiled darkly, still wearing the headband around his forehead, but the man couldn't hurt him now, not mentally anyway. "I did warn you, didn't I? There are consequences for your actions, Impulse. You can't save everyone. No wonder you don't have any friends." Impulse scowled at the man. "You're a jerk." "I know," Julius beamed, standing beside the hermit, grabbing him by the arm. "We should get going." "No, you're not taking him anywhere," Skids groaned, struggling to sit up as Impulse was pulled away. His friend's face was ghostly pale, his piercing blue eyes full of determination, even though he was in a lot of pain. "Stay away from my charge!" Blake shouted from above. Impulse looked up just as the figure soared off the railing, hurtling toward them before tackling Julius from the hermit. "You don't ever give up, do you?" Julius sneered at his cousin, yelping as Blake reached for the headband. Blake yanked the headband off Julius' forehead just as the young man tossed Blake aside, getting to his feet. Blake stood up moments after, pocketing the headband safely away. Blake stood firmly in front of the Impulse Skids, his chin high, awaiting for what Julius might do expectantly. "Give me your medical box, Blake," Impulse insisted, falling to Skid's side once more, turning to look up at the young man. Blake glanced back, rummaging through his pocket. Julius took this moment to lunge at the boy. "Watch out!" Skids warned. Blake pulled out his blade instinctively, blocking Julius's attack with a dagger in the young man's hand, still covered with fresh blood. "You have no one to back you up," Julius sneered. "You can't save both of them." "You have no one to back you up either," Blake said confidently. "And yes, I can." Julius smiled darkly, shaking his head and stepping back. "You are always stubborn, like your father. Your pathetic YouTuber father." Blake lifted his chin, confidence in his eyes. At least my father loved me. Julia Scott. My father loves me too. Don't you even start with that. When was the last time I did something with you? That wasn't work-related. And Blake countered, gesturing to the machine. Did he ever prioritize you over his job? Make time for you? Or does he usually use empty words with no meaning behind them? Julius narrowed his eyes, anger sparking within them. My father cares about me, just as he did with my sister. Excuse me. Just as he did with his sister? My mother? Blake asked, raising an eyebrow. He watched as the YouTuber tortured. He watched as that YouTuber was tortured to death. Julia sneered. Sister deserved what was coming to her. Did she? Blake raised an eyebrow. Did I really deserve to lose my parents because of this war? This is my friend. I was never your friend. Julia snapped, charging at Blake again, who blocked him with a sword again. You were annoying little cousin, the one I had to babysit. I never liked you. Take that back. Skiz groaned. Impulse looked back as he saw the YouTuber manage to sit up, clutching his side in pain. All color drained from his face. He fell back weakly to the floor, coughing as blood splattered from his lips. Don't overexert yourself, Skiz. You'll make it worse. Impulse pleaded, leaning over to his friend, his vision blurred by tears. Julia laughed. I wouldn't bother. It's already too late for him. He tossed the dagger onto the floor. It skidded to his top beside the hermit. Impulse looked down at it, feeling lightheaded as he saw a dark purple substance along the edges of the blade he hadn't seen before. The poison will slowly kill him, unable to allow him to heal. You can't save him, Impulse. No. Impulse shook his head, seeing Julia's dash for the entrance. Blake hesitated before turning to the two YouTubers, pulling out his medical kits. I don't even know what I'm saying. Pulling out his medical kit before kneeling next to Hermit. Give me the antidote, Blake, hurry. Blake nodded, pulling out the golden liquid that had been stashed away. Impulse guessed they probably had made more in case something similar to his previous viruses returned. Impulse took the bottle, his hand shaking, scooting over to Skiz's head as bright blue eyes faded some. All the determination and confidence seemed to have disappeared. The YouTuber looked exhausted. Impulse lifted the YouTuber's head, urging him to drink. Skiz smiled sadly, taking the substance. Impulse seeing a tear falling down his friend's cheek. Chapter 20. Stay with me, buddy, Impulse whispered, Blake placing a tower of regen over the hermit's. I did it again. The YouTuber's chest, handing Impulse another towel. The hermit pressed it against Skiz's side. Stay with me. Skiz coughed in pain, his eyes meeting the hermit's. He looked almost sad. I'm not going anywhere. Impulse wiped sweat from the YouTuber's forehead, still trying to hold back the tears that still fell. Is the antidote doing anything? I'm not sure. Blake frowned, looking at Skiz's face. Time will tell. We don't have time, Impulse snapped, looking over at the boy. Campbell's men will be here any moment. We can't stay here. His car. Besides, it's going after Scar, Blake said gently, putting a hand on his shoulder, taking the dagger from the floor, pocketing it away. He's not going to let anything happen to him. Impulse nodded, his throat closing up with fear. That happened. His eyes moved back down to Skiz. His face looked hollow and faded. They were running out of time. Skiz, Impulse whispered, reaching for the YouTuber's hand, which felt limp in his grasp. Please don't leave me. No one is ever truly gone. Skiz moaned weakly, meeting the hermit's eyes. I'll be there if you need me. Impulse shook his head, tightening his grip on the YouTuber's hand, pressing the towel harder. I'm not losing you. I can't lose you. I can't. I'm here. He smiled weakly at his friend. Kiss. Impulse trailed off, seeing tears falling down the YouTuber's face. Love you, buddy, Skiz said softly. Don't let anything happen to the others. They're counting on you. No. Impulse sobbed, grabbing onto his friend's shoulders. You can't. Please, hang on, please. Skiz said nothing, his eyes closing last time. A moment later, a long labored breath disappeared into a puff of smoke, leaving behind weapons, food, tools, and a random assortment of other items. The towel fell limply to the floor. The towels fell limply to the floor as the hermit pulled back his hands. He felt arms wrap around him into a hug, feeling a damn warmth burst within him as he melted into the embrace. His kiss could be gone. It could be. He wouldn't allow it. He couldn't accept his kiss, couldn't he? Impulse. Blake's soft voice whispered into his ear. Impulse opened his eyes, moving his eyes away from the floating items as the boy held him close. We need to go. We can't stay here. I need to do something first. Impulse's voice said shakily, pulling away from the boy as he got to his feet. Otherwise, millions of lives will be at stake. Blake nodded, starting to pick up the fallen items. I'll be right behind you. Impulse smiled weakly, grateful for the boy being there. He wasn't alone. Even seeing the tears falling down the boy's face, he was still determined to keep him safe, just like his kiss had been. His kiss. Was he really gone? Was everything they fought for to be together all for nothing? No, couldn't be. He wouldn't let his friend's death go in vain. He wouldn't let the men break him. He'd make sure they regretted everything done to him and his friends. He wouldn't stop fighting. Wouldn't stop trying. Couldn't stop. People needed him. Needed him to be strong. Needed him. Blake met him at the ladder, reading the look on his face. I'm always here if you want to talk about it. Impulse nodded, putting her hand on the railing. I'm going to need all the help I can get. The boy smiled, sadly at that and nodded, watching him ascend to the balcony. Impulse saw 3 men lying unconscious on the floor before him, stepping over them warily, arriving at the door. He knew what he had to do. Chapter 21. Oh, I always hate reading that. Oh. Chapter 21. He walked down the hall, unnerved by just how quiet it was. There was no shouting, no running footsteps of soldiers coming toward them. There weren't any voices behind doors or walls looking for them. For him, there weren't even alarms going off. The only thing he could hear were his and Blake's footsteps, and his heart pounding in his ears. Impulse arrived at the end of the hall. Walking into the room he'd been in before, going to the door, which was closed. He pushed it open, seeing no one inside, apart from the portal. Where is everyone? Impulse asked wearily, looking back over at Blake. Campbell wanted to cause a distraction so they could escape. Blake frowned, looking over his shoulder. I don't know. Impulse bit his bottom lip. I hope Scar's okay. You can feel him, can't you? Blake tilted his head thoughtfully. Impulse walked into the room, closing his eyes as he mentally reached out. Scar, can you hear me? Yes, voice replied, soft, almost an echo. Where are you? Are you safe? Impulse asked quickly, hearing nothing at first, asking again. Are you safe? I'm safe. Silence with me. Scar assured him. A wave of peace filled the hermit, quelching any fear he'd been feeling. How did you learn to do that? Impulse asked curiously. I don't know, I just imagine something and it happens, Scar said. Impulse could imagine the hermit giving him a casual shrug without a response, and Impulse smiled. I take that as a good sign? Blake looked at the machine cautiously. The portal wasn't activated. I want to see if I can download some things from this. Blake nodded, pulling out his communicator, handing it to the boy. That's not right. What is it? Blake nodded, pulling out his communicator, handing it over to the hermit. What is it? It's how Julia's Scar. Impulse went over to the screen, pressing a few buttons before connecting Blake's communicator to the machine, fiddling with a few things. Destroying this won't solve the problem. I'm fairly sure they have at least one more. So I'm going to get all the cores that they have in the hope someone can do something with it. Smart, Blake nodded, watching the hermit work. I'm guessing I'm not getting them back. I mean, if you don't mind having courts to everything, sure, Impulse smirked. But no, I'll give you a new one. Impulse fiddled with a few more things. Seeing the device in his hand light up, he smiled. He pocketed the communicator as he looked over at Blake. Do you have anything to destroy the pickaxe? Destroy this? Pickaxe? Explosives? Blake paused for a moment, reaching into his pocket before pulling out a pickaxe. Here, you can borrow this tool. Impulse chuckled, taking the tool, breaking down the machine until there was nothing left. When he was done, he rummaged through a couple of barrels lying beside it, finding some papers as he pulled them out, handing the boy his pickaxe. Blake took it, watching the hermit curiously. Doc might like to have this, Impulse said, more to himself than to Blake, pocketing the papers, his eyes looking over at Blake again. Let's go. Gone, and Julius was still running free. No doubt that man had caused more trouble. He couldn't think about that now. However, he had a mess to fix. Even if he didn't make the mess, he needed to do what he could to protect those he could. Skids would have wanted that. They could be one step ahead. All they needed was a little bit of time. Can't ever allow that. Okay, we're almost at 90 minutes again. Chapter 22. Impulse landed on the grass below, seeing Jim and Pearl's base ahead of him. The wall behind him. He clung onto Blake, who let go once he was already on the ground. Can I have the 2 headbands you collected? Impulse asked wearily, looking over at the front entrance of the wall. Seeing someone approaching them, it was Scarzo, their escort. The man was tall, his posture was commanding, yet look in his eyes was gentle. Blake nodded, pulling out 2 devices, passing them to the hermit. Impulse looked down at the headbands. They both looked very similar. The only difference was that the hint of a shine in the glass. One was green and one was blue. Let me know if you need anything. The others are inside. We'll be inside. Impulse smiled at the boy, pocketing the device. Thank you. The boy returned the smile, nudging the hermit toward the door as the other protector met up with the 2 of them. I'm assuming the mission went successfully? The man asked the boy as Impulse began walking towards the front door. Besides, and I got separated, but it went well enough, Blake reported calmly. Impulse glanced back, see a sad look on the boy's face. The hermit watched the 2 of them walk away to the door, noticing the ruins of the tower near the crumbling wall. It was completely destroyed, a pile of rubble and debris scattered across the grass. Green was in there. His thoughts reminded him. He shuddered. Green was fine. He was safe. Had to be. Scar was safe after all. Hermit walked into the base, closing the door behind him. Impulse? A voice asked, sounding surprised to see him in the main room. Sounding surprised from the main room. Impulse looked up at the sound of his name. The hermit stepped away from the door, walking into the room. Jem stood by the window, the shadow of a curtain fluttering back into place. Her green eyes were curious, but uncertain, reading his expression. The moment passed. She charged at him, tackling him into a hug. Okay. He laughed, returning the embrace. Okay. She pulled away, looking at him in the eyes. Your voice is shaking. Impulse swallowed, smiling again. I'm just glad to be back, that's all. Where are the others? Pearl and B-Dubs are in the bunker, setting up a few more alarm systems and traps. Tango is upstairs with Green. He's working on the chip some more, trying to figure out what that mysterious setting is. Jem said with a shrug. Her eyes studied him again before a knowing smile appeared in her face. You know what it does, don't you? Impulse nodded solemnly. Yeah, unfortunately I do. I've got the missing piece we need from Julius. Her face lit up from the report. That's great! You shouldn't keep waiting then. Impulse headed toward the stairs, putting a hand on the railing. He looked over at her. Can you do something for me real quick? Yeah? Jim frowned. See if Doc can drop by. I got some things I needed to talk to him about. Impulse didn't look at her in the eye. If you think he can do interested. Jim beamed, and the smile faltered. What happened back there? I thought Skith would be with you. A lump formed in his throat, tears filling his eyes. Paul shook his head, trying to shake away the gnawing despair. Was he really gone? Yes, he's gone. He could come back. Oh. Jem took a step back, her features softening with sympathy. You felt that? Paul looked down at her, curious. She nodded. Except heavier. He's not coming back, is he? No. Paul's bottom lip quivered, unable to hide the tears in his eyes. He's not coming. I'm here if you want to talk about it sometime. She smiled gently. I'll call Doc like you asked, okay? Anything else you need me to do? No, just call Doc, really. Impulse sighed. And make sure to tell them to be careful. There's a very good chance someone might be coming for him. She nodded. No, I will. Don't worry about that. I'll let you know if anything comes up. Thanks, he smiled softly, starting to climb up the staircase again. I wish I could have brought better news. Is Scar okay, at least? Jim pressed, Hermit arriving at the top of the stairs. He's safe. Matthias is with him, Impulse replied. There you go, she grinned. Some good news after all. Impulse nodded. He knew she was right. It was good news. Scar was going to be reunited with them soon. And what? How could they prepare for something so unpredictable? Someone could pop out of nowhere and tear everything away from them at any moment. Though they weren't safe or far from it. No one truly was. Chapter 23. Impulse walked down the hallway, making it to the workshop door, finding Tyler standing just outside the door. The man opened his eyes, pushing himself from the wall he'd been leaning on, smiling at the hermit. It's good to see you returned in one piece. Yeah, Impulse managed a weak smile. Is it all right if I go in? I've got something that might help. Impulse, is that you? The workshop door opened and Tango appeared on the other side, his ruby red eyes wide with surprise and relief. Tango looked much better than he had after the attack at his base from Julius. He was no longer bandaged, and the burns had seemed to disappear entirely. A grin was plastered on his friend's face. Why don't you come inside? Impulse didn't hesitate, walking into the room. The door closed behind him. Impulse took in the room. The curtain sheltered out most of the light. The only source of light was the hanging redstone lamp. Sitting in the corner, on the edge of his seat, was Grant. He still looked a little bruised, but overall unharmed. When did you get back? Grant asked curiously, his dark eyes looking him over. Is Scar? He's coming soon. Impulse nodded. He's safe. Grant let out a sigh of relief. He could see his friend's face was so pale. You okay, buddy? Impulse asked him, crossing the room to see his friend better. I'm fine. Grant let out a sigh. I'm just worried, you know. I could feel he was in pain and agony. Tears filled Hermit's eyes as Impulse put a hand on his shoulder to comfort him. I hated it too. They made me watch. It was a whole lot worse when you know what they were doing. What were they doing to him? Grant squeaked, looking up at the Hermit, amplifying what the headband could do, but on a far bigger scale. Impulse shuddered. I couldn't stop it. I couldn't. He's safe now. That's all that matters, Tango replied matter-of-factly. We were testing the headband together when the incident happened. Felt it too? Impulse frowned, turning to his friend. It's not the first time. Tango sighed, nodding. You're okay? They didn't hurt you? Not physically. Impulse smiled, hoping to reassure his friend. He pulled Julius's headband from his pocket. Dick was able to snag this from his cousin. It's the piece we were missing. The controller. Tango's eyes widened, taking the headband from the hermit's hand. This is incredible. Hopefully it helps with anything you might be doing. He looked over at Grant, smiling. It certainly helps with the headband part, Tango paused. So if you're able to turn off the controller, then the headband is dead? Yeah, all it needs is some sort of frequency to intercept it. And it's simply using the mind. Impulse nodded. I was able to surprise Julian one time with knowledge. Tango laughed. How do you like that? Not very much, Impulse mused, walking over to the table. So what have you been working on before I got here? Well, I was just trying to tweak the chip a little bit, Tango replied matter-of-factly, to see if it could unlock what we needed to figure out the new setting. Guess that doesn't need to happen now. What can I do? Green asked, getting to his feet as well. coming to the table to see what the red students were looking at. Basically like the previous setting, except the controls with a single thought, Impulse said sourly. Julius used it to torture me, to try to break me so that I would do what Campbell wanted me to do. What did he want to do with you? I feel like that D and the ID were like device, and like Julia's controller, there would be an ISD, because like it could be used like, basically just a C for a controller. I feel like that's what it is. Yeah, device, controller. Yeah, that's just how it came to be. What did he want to do with you? Tango observed the new controller in his hand, his eyes moving slowly, analyzing every little detail. Basically, to make things for him to help in his goal in destroying us. Impulse shook his head. These guys are a bunch of Gerald fanatics who want to see the world burn. They don't care about justice. They just want to cause pain, hurt people for their own gain. I'm sorry. Dangle looked away from their headband, nodding in Impulse's direction solemnly. That had to be rough. What did you know? Impulse sighed, wiping away a tear from his eyes. May I ask who Campbell is? Is he the new leader now? Green asked. Basically, yeah. His name is Theodore Campbell. Impulse confirmed. He's the guy who ordered Beezup's capture. Green shuddered. His too. Impulse swallowed, a lump forming in his throat, pulling his shoulders back. Right, and attacked the safe house where Skid was at, having Royster reinfect him. Where is Skid anyway? Tango asked curiously. I haven't seen him since he left this morning. Impulse choked on the words, shaking his head. He's gone. How? What happened? Green asked quickly, concern in his eyes. Is he gone? Like, not coming back? Impulse looked at his feet sadly. He's not coming back. Julius killed him during the rescue mission. Camp out Royce Gerald ran off with Scar. Messiahs went after them. Gerald? Green gasped. And Royster? Impulse kicked the foot of the table. Help. Impulse. Green's face paled, nodding his head slowly. That makes sense. What about RJ and Mr. A? Did they get out? Tango pressed. Impulse shrugged. I doubt it, was the way Campbell was acting regarding those two. Julius didn't seem to like them either. You could see fear in Green's eyes as Impulse put a hand on his shoulder again. Green didn't pull away, looking up at the hermit. What about the portal? Can they still use? Impulse nodded slowly. Yeah, they still have the technology. I feel like they would have more than the one I came across. He pulled Blake's communicator from his pocket. I managed to get the cords from it, though. I feel like we can use it. I was going to talk to Doc about it, but I don't know if he'll be able to get you yet. Gray nodded. It's not safe to be alone anywhere. Not even here. I'm not letting anyone hurt you, Impulse said firmly. I'm not letting anyone hurt you, Impulse said firmly, pulling his friend into a side hug, looking up at Tango. Either of you. Why are you looking at me like that? Tango asked wearily. Sure, Julius saw through my bluff, putting Doc into blame for Chip. The hermits followed. He seemed to believe me anyway. You were protecting me. Tango managed to smile. If you're worried that Doc might not take it well to it, I wouldn't. I don't know. Impulse sighed, pulling away from Green. Doc can handle it, even if they try to portal method. The hermit trailed off, unsure whether or not he wanted to finish that sentence. How exactly does the portal work? Green asked, looking at Impulse. I don't know. Impulse bit his bottom lip. They never really explained how it worked to me. I couldn't really tell. They needed a specific set of cords, probably determined by someone else beforehand. It's possible the Doc is safe because none of the men have been able to get into his base. Green smiled sadly. He's fine. I'm just worried about if we stick together, then it'll be much harder to hurt us, Impulse said slowly. That's possible, Green whispered, shaking his head. Julius did take Scar, after all. I still can't figure out how, though. How did Julius get into my workshop? Tango frowned. He stole something of mine. I used to try to escape Rob when I was trapped as a decoy in Green's base. He looked over at Green, who nodded. Lovely, Tango sighed, putting down the headband. Next thing you'll tell me is they have an invisibility detectors too. They do? He smiled weakly. Not helping, Tango groaned, looking up at the ceiling. What else did we have to worry about? Hopefully not much more, Impulse replied casually, looking up when the door opened. Jem peeked her head into the room. Doc's downstairs, waiting for you, she said calmly. He can't stay long. It's probably for the best. Impulse smiled, thanking her as he walked out of the room. He headed to the stairs, finding Doc waiting for him in the main room. The meeting had been quick and brief. Impulse filling him in on everything, showing him the papers and the communicator with the cords. I could rebuild this and see what I could do, Doc said calmly, nodding his head. Is that everything? I think so, Impulse replied quietly. Other than me throwing you under the bus. When I'm done, there will be no bus, Doc mused simply, getting to his feet from the couch. They'll pay for what they did. Please be careful, Impulse insisted. His friend walked to the front door. It was still open, his protector waiting outside. Don't worry about me, Impulse. I'll be fine, Doc said confidently. I can take it. He pulled out a large object that was strewn over his back. It looked like some sort of mix of a crossbow and a cannon. They won't be able to use those portals on us for long. Thanks, Doc, Impulse said in sincerity. I don't know what we would do without you. The goat creeper man smiled. My pleasure. Impulse watched as Doc walked out of the door, hearing rockets a moment later, two shadows disappearing into the sky. He walked over to the front door, closing it behind him, just as he heard the restore mechanism to the secret door under the stairs activate. Impulse turned, seeing a couple of figures step out from the hidden room. Seeing Beat-Up's eyes grow wide when he saw him. Impulse, you're back! Missed you too, Impulse smiled, looking over at Pearl. I think it's about dinner time, right? Pearl looked over to the window, Impulse following her gaze. The afternoon light was already slowly turning to evening. I think we have a little bit of time yet. How have you been, Impulse? Everything go all right? Suppose it could, Impulse said simply, patting his pockets, relieved to have the communicator and papers out of his possession. We lost Giz. Giz? Beat-Ups gasped, horror in an expression. Impulse nodded his head solemnly. Julius took his threat very seriously. Just don't think I could do to stop him. I'm sorry to hear that, Impulse. Pearl's teal eyes looked into his own. Sad look on her face. He'll be missed. Impulse sighed, shaking his head. He will. Julius intended to break me, but it won't. They won't get what they want. He tightened his fists as Pearl crossed the room, giving him a hug. No, they won't. Pearl agreed with a smile. What about Scar? Is he going to? Beat-Ups asked nervously. Scar's safe. Besides, we'll get him here as soon as he can. Impulse smiled reassuringly, relief rippling across the hermit's face. Hopefully they don't take too long. Pearl frowned, pulling away as she went to the window. Impulse nodded, feeling another wave of reassurance fill him. They'll be here soon, I'm sure of it. Yeah, Beat-Up's face lit up into the stairs. Our enemies have a hold of a very dangerous piece of tech. It's not safe to be alone anywhere. No. Beat-Ups nodded with a smile. What are you waiting for then? Come on, the room can't make itself. Impulse chuckled, following the hermit to the stairs. Pearl following, just behind. He didn't look back. He didn't need to. All that mattered was that his friends were here, together. They were safe. There was nothing their enemies would be able to do to stop it. I think I can do one more chapter. I don't know. Maybe. Maybe a little bit more. Chapter 24. Impulse walked out into the hallway, spotting Isaac waiting. Not too far away, leaning against the wall. The hermit had summarized. The young boy had stayed the entire time, close by in case they needed anything. After a report of the kind of technology someone like Campbell and Gerald had, he could not blame the cause for being cautious. It surely couldn't be alone for long anymore. Isaac wasn't alone, however. Impulse could see that Blake had joined him at some point when the trio were working in Scar's room. He had taken a step out to see how things were doing outside, seeing as Pearl and Beat-Ups were doing well in taking care of the interior of the room. He'd done his part by loading the chest with needed ingredients and potions that could come in handy. including healing, regeneration, strength, and a few spare antidotes he'd been able to locate. Although he didn't have the golden apple that glowed to them, the newer versions he'd made. Confident that B-Dubs and Pearl would be alright, he decided to walk down the hallway. Blake meeting his eyes as the young man watched him approach. Isaac followed his gaze as their conversation dialed down. I wasn't interrupting anything, was I? Impulse asked curiously. I was just catching up with Isaac about what's been going on. And Blake said matter-of-factly, hesitating before smiling sheepishly. It would have been easier to do on a communicator, but mine was taken from me. Impulse smiled apologetically. Let me go see if there's one in the workshop you can use. On any woman is. Oh, golly. Wow. You ran all the way across the carriage just to get away. Obviously. Aww. Okay. The boys didn't say anything as Impulse opened the door to the workshop, catching Tango by surprise, who was still tinkering with the chip. Green was standing across from him, watching him curiously. He too looked up, giving the hermit a wave. I'm checking to see if there's any extra communicator for Blake, Impulse said quickly with a smile. Hopefully you weren't considering an all-nighter tonight, Tango. Who, me? Tango giggled, looking back down at the chip, now meeting the hermit's eye. I'm almost done with this prototype. Just gotta test it on various subjects. Various? Impulse raised an eyebrow, reaching the corner of the room, near the window, opening a nearby shulker box, finding what he was looking for, snatching the extra communicator from the box. Tango wants to see if the signal on the headbands can be affected by different people. Green lifted his chin, smirk on his face. Like between YouTubers, non-YouTubers, and, well, those in between. I can't be sure there is a difference, Tango shrugged, looking at Impulse. Could you describe how you surprised Julius with the frequency? I basically channeled my mental energy to him, Impulse replied reluctantly. It's like how I was able to do it before, sending B-Dub's agony to Skiz when I was under the chorus fruit virus. In this case, I used my anger, rage, and even agony. I have only done it once to Julius when he was taunting me. Tango nodded, picking up the headband. Could you show me? Impulse looked down at the headband he was holding. It was glowing faintly blue, and the redstone lamp lighting. Are you sure it's safe? I can't be sure of anything, Tango admitted with a frown. But if we can figure out how this works, then maybe we can use it to our advantage, if we ever need it. The man's red eyes looked over at Green. To Green as he said it. The other hermit nodded. Scar was also able to do it, Impulse added quickly, his mind going back to the memory, hearing his friend scream. At least he pulled it off when... Maybe it'll be easier if you show me. Tango smiled gently. Don't worry, I won't hurt you. The hermit nodded with a reluctant smile. All it takes is one thought, far faster than a button ever could be. Green shuddered when the hermit said that. I'm sure it'll be fine, right? Impulse pocketed the communicator, crossing the room. He took the headband from his friend's outstretched hand, checking it over for a moment before putting it on. He watched Tango put on the controller part of the headband as it came to life. What do you need me to do? Tango offered. Send a wave of fear or something? Think of your worst fear, I guess, and start there, Impulse replied meekly. And try not to use the link when doing so. What would happen if he did? If he did? Green asked curiously. Not sure, but since Julius doesn't have that ability to connect their links, it's not fair play, Impulse said sheepishly. Most likely those who are hurting us are those who aren't like us. I'll do my best, Tango replied with a nod. Tango readjusted the headband, touching it as he focused. Suddenly, Impulse felt a wave of sadness wash over him. He gasped. Within the sadness, he could feel fear and pain. Impulse closed his eyes, focusing on the headband, pushing back the feeling as it wavered. Whoa, Tango breathed sharply. I think I get it now. You're playing tug-of-war with me. You're lucky I am, Impulse mused. Throwing it hurts a lot more. Julius yelped like a frightened puppy when I smacked him with it. Green giggled. I wish I could have seen the look on his face. Me too, Impulse sighed, shaking his head. He did not like that, and would not let me do it again when they were torturing Scar. He said Scar was able to do something similar to you? Tango added. This is where we might need a third party to try. Impulse looked over at Grian. Do you want to be a guinea pig with me? It's not like I have a choice, Grian asked nervously. Impulse felt the humming stop, removing the headband as he looked at Tango. Wow, you're good at turning it on and off mentally, Impulse said with a smile. That's good. Last thing we need is someone to get shocked. Getting shocked, Tango laughed, nudging Grian playfully. Don't worry, Impulse knows what he's doing. You sure you want to be so confident in my skills? Impulse teased his friend. Tango nodded. Impulse took the headband from... Grian took the headband from Impulse's hand, putting it around his head as well. He immediately winced as the headband glowed to life. I'm never going to get used to this. Oh. Okay, do the same thing, Tango. I'm going to try something, Impulse said, closing his eyes, reaching out across the midnight void, touching Grian's link, pulling himself in as he felt a wave of sadness, fear, and pain float around him. He imagined a wave of calm and peace flowing from his hand, running through the hermit's body. Grian let out a sigh. That feels so good. How are you doing that? With your mind, anything is possible, Impulse said confidently, opening his eyes. Scar managed to help me stay strong, even though he was in agonizing pain. Grian winced. At least we know what to do next time. They'll probably find a way to block this ability or prohibit it in some way, those that can't use the link, Impulse noted. Grian taking off the headband, putting it down on the table. When I don't know, but no doubt they'll try. Grian swallowed. That's why you don't want them to know it was Tango. Impulse nodded. I don't want Campbell hurting anyone else. He can do whatever he wants to me. Impulse shook his head, heading for the open door. Both Kiss and Scar were there for me when I needed it. And if there's people out there who need someone like that, it can save so many lives. Tango crossed the room, putting a hand on the hermit's shoulder. We're here if you needed to. And now that we know how to do it, we can practice and improve. Impulse smiled and nodded, looking up at Grian. It's getting late. We should probably get to bed. Do you know when Scar will be here? Grian asked warily, looking out the window. He should be here in the morning, if all goes well, Blake said, appearing at the door. The three hermits jumped in surprise. Caleb's been keeping an in close touch. So can you, Impulse replied, pulling out the spare communicator from his pocket, handing it to the boy. Blake smiled, taking it from him, storing it away safely. If anything happens, it'll be good half. I wonder, though, Blake pondered. What's this link of yours? Could it be used as anyone you're connected with? Not sure, Impulse replied. It's got to be a close bond. I don't know if it works on non-YouTubers. What about hybrids? Blake tilted his head. Impulse shrugged and smiled. It's untested. Okay. Blake nodded, looking over to the two YouTubers for a moment. You really should get some rest, especially you, Grian. Grian let out a long, heavy sigh. Why staying up and waiting? No, that's our job, not yours. Blake reassured him. It was an Impulse noticed the dark bag starting to form under Grian's eyes. Nightmares? Impulse asked, looking over at Tango for a moment. Exactly, Grian wheezed, shaking his head. He hasn't slept well after the attack on the tower. Impulse patted the hermit on his shoulder. I just can't sleep, okay? Grian insisted. Not when I know there's a possibility of those guys disappearing in my room and waking me up in the middle of the night to take me or take someone else. Squeaked nervously as Impulse crossed the room, wrapping an arm around him. How does a sleepover sound? Impulse asked calmly. What do you mean? Grian asked, looking up at the hermit. B-Dubs and Pearl are finishing Scar's room, Impulse explained. What if we just made it bigger? Make it an entire room for all of us to sleep in. Safety in numbers. Grian nodded his head. Is that okay? Of course it is, Tango exclaimed, patting the hermit on the back. I feel safer being with friends as well. Plus, we can have one or two of the boys sleep with us to keep us company. That's an idea. Someone on the outside and inside, Blake nodded, looking into the hall. How does that sound, Isaac? I'm down, Isaac's voice replied eagerly. Makes our job a little easier. Blake giggled. Yeah. Could you see if Jem is still downstairs and let her know? Grian and Impulse, follow me. We can see how the other two are doing. I can stop now. It's probably better anyway. Tango said quickly. As the two hermits started for the door, Bowles looked back, seeing him put down the headband he'd been holding, his forehead clean on the device as well. I doubt they'd be watching through their cameras, Impulse frowned, looking up at the back wall, where a small red light shone, just up above a clear glass lens of a camera. I'm not taking my chances, Tango wheezed, shaking his head, pushing his friends out of the workshop. I don't want Julius showing up again and trying to go for seconds. You're safe with us, Isaac said calmly, reassuring the hermit with a smile. I know, I just hope Doc sets up whatever he's setting up soon. Before they decide to show themselves again, Tango replied plainly. Impulse nodded. I couldn't agree more. I'm going to end this here. It's a good spot to end. And yeah, then we can continue on and see how many more parts this has. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I know there was a big moment in this part, and yeah, it's going to be interesting because I didn't want to originally do it. I didn't want to kill off Skiz. I tried not to. That's why I was struggling to write the book for so long. And then, the story's not working. It might be better. It might be best to do it. Because sometimes when nothing else works, you just gotta bite the bullet. Literally. Bite the bullet and do something you don't want to do because, it fits with the storyline. It's like Squid was always going to die. Eli was always going to die. Devon? Yeah. Xavier? I mean, he didn't have to die, but, if you wanted to have Blake around, you needed Xavier to die or something to happen to Xavier. So, yeah. Skiz was really hard to just poof. Mumbo? I still wanted to do stuff with him, so I kept him alive. He could have died, but I needed him to stay alive a little bit longer. Skiz? I really didn't want to do it, but for the story, it needed to happen, and every single time it was Julius. Every single time. So, yeah, that's what happened. I don't know what's going to happen next, but I do have more in the back of my mind for more story. And of course, people are willing to watch these, which is great and absolutely fine by me. I don't care. I just need to see how the story goes. And if you guys have any ideas of what I could do, yeah, feel free to leave them down in the comments below if you want. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. I guess I do hope you enjoyed about 2 hours worth of reading, which is awesome. But yeah, I'm gonna quick fix this up so it's ready for you guys to watch. And yeah, see you guys in the next one, whenever that might be. It might be on Monday. Probably will be on Monday. But yeah, I just wanted to stream some stuff. And see how that goes. And it's almost 7 o'clock. See you guys in the next one.